The case for God and Jesus Christ using prophecy, history, logic, and physics. Statement of honest intent. Before I even give you the introduction, I'm going to say if you're determined not to be open-minded, if you've made up your mind that you know everything, and you're not willing to entertain the real possibility you don't possess all knowledge, and that there might be a great, big, beautiful, glorious God that none of us understand in full, there's no point in you watching my video. Introduction. When someone rejects the very existence of God, it helps to move away from religious feelings and go straight to checkable data, dates, numbers, fulfilled prophecies, and basic physical laws. Christianity does not demand blind faith. The Bible stakes its credibility on things we can actually test, prophecies written centuries in advance, historical events that match those prophecies to the exact day, and a view of the universe that lines up with physics and logic. 1. The Dead Sea Scrolls and Daniel, prophecy written before Jesus. The Dead Sea Scrolls include multiple copies of the Book of Daniel. Experts date the oldest Daniel fragment to around the late 2nd century BC, well before Christ's birth. That means Daniel definitely existed in written form before Jesus came, so whatever is predicted there cannot be a Christian after the fact added. In Daniel 9 verses 24 and 27, the 70 weeks, prophecy lays out a timeline to the coming of Messiah the Prince. A week equals a 7-year period. 70 weeks equals 77 is equal to 490 years. The first 69 weeks equals 69/7 is equal to 483 years up to the appearing of the Messiah. The Bible consistently uses a 360-day prophetic year in its time prophecies. So, 483 years, 360 days year equals 173,880 days. That's the prophetically stated time between the decree to rebuild Jerusalem and the public arrival of Messiah the Prince. 2. Exact day calculation from Artaxerxes' decree to Jesus entering Jerusalem. A classic historical calculation takes. Start point. The decree of Artaxerxes to rebuild Jerusalem, identified with 1 Nisan 445 BC, which corresponds to March 14th for 45 BC. End point. The triumphal entry, Jesus riding into Jerusalem on a donkey, identified with 10 Nisan AD 32, which corresponds to April 6th AD 32. Now watch the math. Step 1. Convert the years. From 445 BC to AD 32. There is no year 0 between 1 BC and AD 1. Counting out, 445 BC to 1 BC equals 444 years. 1 BC to AD 32 is equal to 32 years. 444 plus 32 is equal to 476 solar years. Step 2. Total days in 476 solar years. Using our normal 365-day year. 476 years, 365 days equals 173,740 days. Step 3. Add the leap years. Roughly every 4 years in that span is a leap year, but century years not divisible by 400 are skipped, so you do not just divide by 4 blindly. Anderson's detailed count yields. Leap days in that period equals 116 extra days. So now we have 173,740 plus 116 is equal to 173,856 days. Step 4. Add the days between March 14th and April 6th. From March 14th to April 6th is 24 days. So, 173,856 plus 24 is equal to 173,880 days. That is exactly the number we got from Daniel. 69 weeks, 7 years, week 360 days year equals 173,880 days. In other words, Daniel said there would be 173,880 days. From the decree to rebuild Jerusalem to the appearing of Messiah the Prince. History shows 173,880 days. From March 14th, 445 BC to April 6th AD 32, the day Jesus rode into Jerusalem, hailed as Messiah. You cannot rig that from a New Testament side because Daniel's text is sitting there in the Dead Sea Scrolls centuries beforehand. 3. Ezekiel, Leviticus, and the exact day of Israel's rebirth in 1948. Now we move to Israel becoming a nation again in one day. Step 1. Ezekiel's 430 years of judgment. In Ezekiel 4, God has Ezekiel lie on his side. 390 days for Israel. 40 days for Judah. Each day represents 1 year, so 390 plus 40 is equal to 430 years of judgment. Israel served 70 of those years in the Babylonian captivity. That means there were 430. 70 is equal to 360 years of judgment still remaining. Step 2. Leviticus multiplies the remaining years by 7. In Leviticus 26, God warns Israel that if they continue in rebellion after initial judgment, he will punish them 7 times over. So the remaining 360 years are multiplied. 360 years 7 is equal to 2,520 years. Again, using the 360-day prophetic year. 2,520 years, 360 days year equals 907,200 days. Step 3. Convert 907,200 prophetic days to our calendar. When you convert 907,200 days into our solar year system, you get 2,483 solar years, 9 months, 21 days. Why? 2,483 years, 365 days equals 906,295. 9 months equals 270 days. 21 more days equals 21. Subtotal, 906,295 plus 270 plus 21 is equal to 906,586. Add in the actual leap year corrections over 2,483 years equals 907,200 days total. So 2,520 prophetic years equals 907,200 literal days equals 2,483 years, 9 months, 21 days on our current Gregorian calendar. Step 4. Count the days to Israel's rebirth. If you count forward 907,200 days from the end of the captivity, beginning of restoration, you land on May 14, 1948, the exact day the modern state of Israel was reborn. Multiple independent prophecy students have done this same calculation and arrived at essentially the same thing. That Ezekiel's strange lying on his side prophecy, combined with the 7-fold multiplication from Leviticus, points directly and precisely to Israel's modern rebirth. No cult, no government, no conspiracy could plan history on that time scale. No human council sat around 2,500 years ago and coordinated Babylon, Persia, Rome, the Holocaust, the United Nations, and the recreation of Israel to match Ezekiel's numbers to the day. That is God's fingerprint. 4. Fine-tuning physics and the origin of the universe. Now set prophecy aside and just look at physics. 1. Matter and energy cannot create themselves. The first law of thermodynamics says energy cannot be created or destroyed within a closed system. The universe is full of matter and energy. It cannot explain its own origin by itself. If nothing produces everything, you've turned nothing into a god. That is not science. It is faith in a made-up power. 2. The Big Bang doesn't solve something from nothing. Saying the Big Bang created everything just kicks the can down the road. Where did the energy for the Big Bang come from? Why did it exist? Why did it do anything? Energy does not spontaneously appear from nowhere and decide to explode. Biblically, God speaks, and then matter and energy come into existence. That actually fits the physics problem. You need a cause from outside the system. 3. Fine-tuning is not an accident. The constants of physics are so precise that tiny changes would destroy the possibility of life, atoms, chemistry, or stars. The more we learn about the universe, the more it looks like a system deliberately calibrated. To look at that level of fine-tuning and deny a creator is like staring at a 500-year-old master painting and insisting the paint splashed itself into perfect shapes and shading. Watching the Great Pyramid somehow balanced exactly on its tip and claiming it did that on its own. The universe looks designed because it is designed. 5. Biological complexity, the human eye, and entropy. Evolution without God says that unguided accidents plus natural selection built all complex life. But both logic and physics fight that claim. 1. The human eye as an example. The eye is not just a ball with a lens. Photoreceptor cells convert light into electrical signals. Chemical cascades reset those cells in milliseconds. The lens changes shape to focus. The brain and optic nerve are wired with staggering precision. Saying that came from blind mutation and selection alone is like saying, if you spill enough paint often enough, eventually you'll get a Rembrandt. Randomness does not write high-precision code. 2. Entropy. Chaos does not build order. In a fallen world, everything tends toward decay and disorder. That's entropy. Expecting random processes plus time to construct increasingly complex, tightly ordered systems is like expecting a house of cards to be left standing, perfectly intact, at ground zero after an atomic explosion. Explosions do not build skyscrapers. Chaos does not construct languages. Entropy does not assemble DNA information systems. Life looks like the work of a mind, not a cosmic accident. 6. Putting it all together. So when someone says there is no God and Jesus was just some guy, they have to ignore Daniel 9 verses 173 and 880 days from Artaxerxes' decree to the exact day Jesus rode into Jerusalem as Messiah, verified by historical dates and day counts. Dead Sea Scrolls, Daniel manuscripts physically existing before Jesus, blocking any Christian forgery explanation. Ezekiel 4 plus Leviticus 26 verse for 30 years of judgment, 70 fulfilled, 360 remaining, multiplied by 7, converted into 907,200 days that land precisely on May 14, 1948, the day Israel was reborn. Hundreds of messianic prophecies fulfilled in Jesus' birth, life, death, and resurrection, many of which he could not humanly stage. Physics, matter, and energy cannot bring themselves into existence. Fine-tuning, universal constants sitting on a razor's edge that screams design. Biology and entropy, complex code, and systems appearing in a universe where everything tends toward disorder. Christianity is not, I just feel like this is true. Is God saying, test me, check the dates, count the days, look at the universe, look at my son. The God of the Bible has left his fingerprints on history, on Israel, on the life of Jesus, and on the fabric of the universe itself. Rejecting him is possible, but it is not intellectually neutral. It requires closing your eyes to the evidence. Postscript. There is one more point that cannot be ignored and is the true clincher. The prophecy of the 70 weeks in Daniel is a single, continuous revelation. It does not merely predict the 173,880-day countdown to the Messiah's appearance. It also predicts the final 7-year period, the one Jesus himself calls the Great Tribulation. And here is the inescapable truth. The first part of the prophecy was fulfilled with mathematical exactness. To the very day. Written centuries beforehand. Verified by history, calendars, astronomy, and the Dead Sea Scrolls. If the 69 weeks were fulfilled perfectly, then the remaining 1 week is not symbolic, mythical, or optional. It is simply the final portion of the same prophecy. If the first 173,880 days were literal, then so are the final 2,520 days. This means the rise of the final world leader, the covenant with Israel, the breaking of that covenant, the global upheaval, the judgments described in Revelation, the return of Jesus in glory. These are not metaphors. They are not spiritualized lessons. They are guaranteed future events from the same God who already proved his accuracy. The fulfillment of the first 69 weeks serves as God's down payment, leaving humanity without excuse regarding the final 7. The arrival of the Messiah proved the prophecy was real. The rebirth of Israel proved God's timeline is still active. And the unfulfilled final week stands waiting, inevitable, unstoppable, and as certain as the sunrise. That is the real kicker. If Jesus fulfilled the first part exactly, then the tribulation is a foregone conclusion. Is not a question of if. Is only a question of when.